What's up, everyone? Alex here, and welcome to another Stormy Talks video, another identity talk video where I just sit in front of the camera and talk about whatever it is that comes to mind. This time I'm talking about dating while trans, and I mean, that's pretty much it. I am dressed in my my Monday best, though when I'm recording this is a Saturday, and this is like a month ago as of uploading this, because I'm kind of ahead on all my videos. Putting my little notebook right here. I'm in a weird mood. I am so sorry. Also, I tried to go for like a neutral look, and instead I just put on a women's cardigan and decided that like the gray color meant that it was neutral, so it's still kind of partially femme, just not neutral like my brain. I don't know. I associate things with color. That's why I have my blog over at the Gender Collector himself. And speaking of plugging, shout out to Special Rutabaga again. I think we're 2 for 2 now. They've been shouting me out in their videos, so I've been shouting them out, but only as I've been like noticing them shouting me out, because I'm kind of a little late on a lot of their videos. I'm not usually very caught up, so I saw a video of theirs and they shouted out my channel, like, well, my gaming channel by name and my Discord server, so it's very strange to hear your name in full coming from someone else's mouth. Like, I like it, I super appreciate it, I just, like, I'm very awkward and very, I guess I'm very shy, so it's really weird, but I linked their YouTube channel in the sidebar on YouTube for desktop. I don't think it's there on the app or on mobile or anything, but in that sidebar there's like a list of like cool content creators, and they're in the sidebar there, so go check it out and see what kind of stuff that they do over there. Kind of a variety channel, but I think you might find it interesting. So I wanted to talk about what it's like being on the dating scene while trans, and dealing with transphobes, as well as just, I guess, dealing with the good things as well, but my overall experiences as an adult being on the dating scene, because I never really actively sought out people to date until I was an adult. I didn't start doing that until like later in life. Like in high school, it was like middle school, high school, I was interested in people, but like it wasn't like, we didn't really, I don't think we had dating sites. We kind of did, but I don't think I knew very much about them. I definitely didn't know anything about like gay dating sites. I didn't know, like, I had a very like weird view about gayness in general, like just because of the way I grew up. So I didn't know that gay dating sites were for legitimately finding people to date and fall in love with, not just for what you like, what homophobes would assume they're for, I guess. So being trans often means that I have to be very particular about who I date and like who I show that kind of interest in general, and how I open up to certain people that I feel the need to feel interested in dating. I was trying to avoid using the word interested again, but oh well. Sometimes I get invasive questions, or people assume things about me. So there's that. Dating profiles that I'm on currently: Tinder, Grindr, OkCupid, Match, which I totally forgot that I had, but I'm most active on Tinder right now, I guess. Yeah, just Tinder. I was very active on Grindr, and then I basically saw everyone locally who I could possibly see. Like, it's the same people over and over again in my like feed, or whatever you want to call it. So that got boring, and I stopped looking on Grindr. And Grindr, let's talk about Grindr without it being like, this is not going to be an adult-oriented video. There would be warnings beforehand. There would be warnings in either the thumbnail or the titles, so do not worry. We are going to be just talking about Grindr in general, and this particular problem area in my dating life, my interested in dating life. I'm not dating a lot of people. I'm not dating anyone but one person at the moment. So I guess it's important to note that because of some stuff that I deal with on dating sites, particularly Grindr, and my preference is dating other trans guys, just because I feel like that is the safest route to go. Like, I feel safer with someone who has the same experiences as me. Extra plus, bonus points if they're non-binary, bonus points assigned female at birth, non-binary person, but like, that's mostly just like, oh, you experienced this thing, now I feel like I can open up about these things about me. It's not like, I ask them beforehand, like, I never need to know, but trust me, cis guys, especially on Grindr, will let you know that they are cis guys, so I don't even have to ask. It's kind of a solidarity thing. Like, trans people usually make themselves known as trans on websites like that. Typically, I guess, but I'm getting a little off topic here. So I want to talk about some of the types of people that I find, particularly on Grindr. I'm mostly going to be talking about men, because that's who I have the most interaction with. That's mostly what you find on Grindr, which is like what I'm focusing on right now, and it's like that's particularly where a lot of this stuff comes from. Just problems I have with dating other people. So types of men I find: the invasive type, the ones that ask me questions that you wouldn't normally ask someone you're trying to first get to know, but because I'm trans, usually the opener is something about my body or something about just like what I want to do surgically, medically, whatever, and like how can I say this in like an appropriate way for this channel? Questions about how I perform certain acts or how I receive certain acts. There we go. That's the one. Like, normally you open with hobbies, or like someone will point something out on your profile, like, hey, I see that you're into Digimon. Why Digimon come to my head? I don't know. That was the first thing that came to mind, even though I haven't been into Digimon in years and years. But like, a normal person opens with that, but it seems that being trans means there's the assumption that I'm open to really weird questions that like cis people don't typically get. The fetishizer, that's the second type, and that's like, it's self-explanatory. This person is usually specifically seeking out trans people, and the issue is that they're usually seeking out trans women. They are the most like, what's the verb for it? When you're being predatory, I don't know the verb. The preyed on, there we go. Jeez, prey is the verb for it. But I know that trans women are the most like preyed on demographic out there, just in general, but like within dating spaces. Yeah, this type of person's usually specifically looking for a body type, but not in a healthy way, not in like, it's definitely a fetishy way. But I'm gonna drop that because those aren't topics that I try to cover on this channel. The confused type, that is the third type that I typically deal with, and they're not so bad. The most I've seen is that they mix up trans woman and trans man. They think it's the same thing, like an assigned male at birth person who is transitioning to female, and like that's like the assumption of all trans people. You say trans and they think trans woman. They think that that's like that's the word for it. They don't think that, or they don't realize that it goes the other way. This kind of person normally just confused and misinformed, not always like, they don't always have questions with the best intentions, though. Like, they still will ask the invasive questions. It's kind of a blend of, it's got some aspects of the invasive type, I guess, is that, like, they could go either way, either asking, like, meaningful questions, like, hey, can you, like, let me know or tell me about this thing? Like, if they ask about, like, certain terminology or something like that, or, like, how I like to be referred to, or, like, if this thing happens between us, like, what do I need to know, sort of thing. Whereas, like, when you're on the other end of the spectrum, it's, like, asking really gross questions and also being misinformed. The invasive type is usually misinformed, but sometimes they know what they're doing, and they know about the trans community. They're just predators, I guess. When I'm in the dating scene, I think you're on the dating scene, prepositions, man, but I definitely have a lot of anxiety about getting involved with a new person, or at least getting to know a new person, because I'll know right away whether or not I will be pursuing a person. I'm pretty quick to, like, drop people, especially if there's, like, red flags where it's, like, their opening question. Like, I don't really believe in first impressions that way. Well, in the way that, like, everyone is a little, like, tense or shy or awkward when they first, like, are talking to a person that they're interested in. Like, I don't believe in first impressions. The first date's going to be tense. Like, it's, like, it can be messy starting out. So I'm not going to, like, fault someone, in general for just sending a weird first message or, like, not knowing what to say when we first talk. But I'm talking about, like, specifically transphobic, invasive, like, not appropriate questions or comments. Like, yeah, like, when I first get a message from somebody, like, that's where I pick it up right away. Like, this is a red flag. I should probably not talk to this person. I do not let it get to the point where I will be meeting up with them and, like, I don't know. I don't really fear for my safety. I'm a pretty careful person, but I wouldn't let it get to, like, meeting up with this person and then finding out that they aren't someone I should be even pursuing, because it's going to be a problem long term. I don't even let it get to that point. Like, I talk to people, like, of course I hook up with people. Of course I'll meet people, like, within days of first messaging them on a dating site. Like, I kind of know when it's appropriate to be impulsive, and I've talked to so many different kinds of people and had so many experiences with dating that, like, I can just kind of tell. There's kind of what would you call it? There's kind of like a formula. I can tell. I can almost predict what people are going to say to me, especially on Grindr. Especially if they're the first to message me. There's, like, I can just tell. And if they don't message me with a picture to start out with, it's usually a question, and there's no introduction. It's like, hey, how are you? My name's whatever, and, like, I see that you're interested in this, like, tell me about it, or something. Like, there's never anything like that. It's always, the opener's always that question, and that's, like, the first step to, like, I think I should watch out for the rest of the stuff that this person might say. It's a little different if it starts out with a normal conversation and then, like, they're respectfully approaching, like, hey, can I, like, ask you something? That's not usually so bad, and I'm a pretty open person, especially if I've gotten to know someone really well, particularly my boyfriend. Like, he'll ask me questions about being trans and about my feelings about gender and my body and all this other stuff, and, like, he's not obligated to know. He's what's the word? I can't think of words right now. But, like, I've given him permission to know those things and to know, like, intimate things about me that I wouldn't share with these strangers who feel entitled to these kind of things. You know, it's all about the entitlement, I think, is what it comes down to. I don't know where I was even going with this before I went to talk about what I'm anxious about when, like, seeking someone out to date, or becoming interested in someone only to find out that they're not the greatest person in the world. I guess the number one thing, it's not a deal breaker, but someone who doesn't understand my experiences specifically. Just, like, I don't know. I need to be able to have someone to talk to. If I'm dating someone, I need that person to be someone I can open up to about specific feelings or about specific experiences as being trans. Hence, preferring dating trans people, because there's a solidarity there that I cannot get with a cisgender person, no matter how much that they've informed themselves on what I experience or what people like me experience. It's just like, it's never going to be the same. Being treated like an object or a novelty, that's another anxiety that I have. That's not something, like I said before, I don't normally let things get to such a bad point. If I'm just like, I don't want to keep bringing this up, but if I'm just let me word this differently, because I want to keep this channel appropriate, but if I'm planning on being with someone short term, let's say overnight, maybe as just like let's meet up on the weekends kind of thing, then like that's where this anxiety would come from, like being fetishized rather than like being respected. And you can be respected or expect respect from someone that you're going to be with in that way. You don't have to be in some deep romantic relationship with someone in order to be entitled to respect. Having to explain my body, this one gets a little weird, because like I've gotten so comfortable in where I am, passing as a transgender man, passing as a man, that like I get to that point where it's like, oh shoot, I need to like talk to this person about like what to expect, like if we're like in an intimate relationship or whatever, like having to explain certain things, like, hey, like maybe there's someone who's never been with someone who has my type of body, and then I have to explain certain things, how certain things work. This isn't really relevant until I've already started seeing the person, but it's still an anxiety that's in the back of my mind. Another anxiety, constantly having to educate others. I rarely come across any situation that puts me into danger. That is, I consider that a privilege. I know that I'm trans, and having privilege is such a, like, it's a touchy subject. When you're talking about trans people, there's the very touchy subject of, like, is being passable a privilege? There's so much nuance to it, and it needs to be approached so delicately and so specifically. But, like, I consider myself as having some kind of privilege at least. Because I am never targeted on sight. I don't get misgendered. I don't get misidentified. I use that privilege in order to educate others. I think I talked about that in the video where I talked about being openly trans and what situations, what situations I find myself in where I like decide to talk about being trans out in the open, and who I decide to tell that I'm trans. I talked about like feeling like I have a sort of privilege and feeling like it's kind of my obligation to educate others where it's appropriate. Obviously, I don't owe anybody my time. I don't owe anyone an explanation, but where I find it appropriate, I will educate others on myself, on my experiences, or at least I try to, but I still have that anxiety where it's like, well, I know that being with this person, I'm gonna have to give them the 101. Though it rarely happens when I'm like actively seeking out a person. Like I find myself having to educate them or answer questions about myself, but I rarely ever have someone who just doesn't know what trans is at all. Like at least if they're on a dating site on the internet, like they have some baseline, I guess, even if it's misinformed, even if it's like an uneducated knowledge of the trans community. Like at least like I don't have to start from square one. But with a lot of people, it's like I'm interested and I'm gonna have to like explain to this person these specific things about me and things that like any other trans person knows about. It's just I have to talk to this person or explain to this person. And sometimes I have to give them the gender 101, especially being a non-binary man. Like, even when someone understands what non-binary is, there's still the assumptions where it's like, how are you a non-binary man? It's like, well, here it is. So I'm not typically open about being non-binary, unless it's with like another trans person, because at least they'll get it. And even if it's a trans person who assumed that non-binary was non-gendered or like completely outside of male or female, like I feel more comfortable educating that kind of person with like what it means for me to be non-binary and what it might mean to a lot of other people, rather than this like it has to be outside of male female entirely, or it has to be like non-gendered, androgynous, stuff like that. Sometimes I like educating people on my experiences with being non-binary. Sometimes I don't mind, because it's a way for me to also explore myself, and like that's what this channel is for. I do not mind something like this where it's like, hey, by the way, you should probably know about this thing, because I'm just learning about it for myself, and like I want to explore this identity and share that with you. Like sometimes I don't mind that, but just like when it gets to that point where I'm really getting to know a person and maybe I start dating them, and then like they're starting to learn more personal stuff about me, eventually it's going to come out that I am non-binary, rather than a fully binary transgender man like they thought I was. Like that can be scary when you're already like with a person, because like what if that changes their perception of you, or what if like they don't accept that or something. That's always kind of scary. Not being understood as a gender non-conforming trans person, or trans person I think is the better way to refer to that, because trans people sometimes often are expected to fulfill gender roles in a way that a lot of cis people are not obligated or made to feel obligated to do, because like you hear of like gender non-conforming gay men or lesbians, like that's pretty normal and people kind of expect that, like the feminine gay male stereotype, the like butch lesbian stereotype, like people assume that. Whereas for trans people, they're going to assume someone, I mean, when I'm like feeling more masculine, when I'm wearing more masculine clothing, presenting like as a man entirely, and like when I'm in spaces where people know that I'm a transgender man, it kind of throws them off course a little bit when people start assuming, or people are like surprised if I'm wearing nail polish, if I'm showing interest in something feminine. People get weird about that. And it's like, well, I thought you were a transgender man. It's like, yeah, but it's not performative. It's identity. Like, it's like I don't have to perform my gender, just like any cis person. Like, cis people don't have to perform any kind of gender role either. But I don't know. I get a little nervous about that too, where I don't really open up to people I'm not very close with about being feminine, about being interested in feminine things or presenting more femininely. I'm getting a little better at it. A lot of my dating profile pictures are of me in cardigans. Those aren't very feminine, but more femme-leaning. Like, all of my profile pictures on my dating profiles are like kind of half and half. Like, half of them are very masculine, half of them are kind of feminine. So they get to at least see the spectrum of my like presenting myself, I suppose. It's very strange to navigate. I have a section here that says notes, and literally the only thing I put under it was to make note of my boyfriend being cisgender and gay and into me. I don't know why I only put that and didn't fill anything else in, but apparently I was supposed to make note. Who wrote this? Apparently I was supposed to just make note of that. I don't know where I would have fit that note in. It was supposed to go with something I had talked about earlier, but just talking about like, I guess I have been lucky a little bit very lucky, I guess. It's just lucky not that many times. Like my boyfriend, like that's like not a once in a lifetime opportunity. I can't think of like the way to word it. That's always my problem. I can't word things very well, but like it's rare for me to find that anywhere. I feel like my dating pool is so narrow. Besides the fact that I'm mostly into men and non-binary people, I mean, I find myself swiping left on women all the time on Tinder. Like, it just doesn't interest me unless they're like gender non-conforming or if they're like not cis. I do not know. It turns out that I was very irresponsible and forgot to post the question of the week. I'm trying to record these videos ahead of time. That's also my problem, is that I can't do that until I start getting answers to the questions of the week. And I only just posted the question of the week right before starting recording this. Is dating hard for you as a trans person, and why? And I did get one person. Angel Cake says, I think the hardest part about dating as a trans person is the constant misgendering. I'm not on hormones, so I look like my assigned gender at birth generally. I usually have to end up explaining that I'm non-binary, and if I put it in a dating profile, I always get ignorant questions. People have expectations for me based on my assigned gender at birth, so I usually end up having to break it to them that I'm not what they think. I mean, this is pretty much like what I was talking about earlier, like people assuming things about you and assuming that you have to fit a certain role or a certain narrative within your gender. But yeah, I get that, and the constant misgendering, like, I have to remember that that is an issue as well, that a lot of people deal with. It's not, I mean, I guess it's kind of the same, like, saying that I'm non-binary and then, like, being called by non-gendered terms or being called they-them pronouns. I actually don't like being referred to with they-them pronouns. It is actually dysphoria-inducing for me, which is, like, that's not something I ever thought about, but after exploring my identity as a non-binary person, like, that's the only kind of misgendering I've ever gotten, and that's only after people know that I'm non-binary. So it's like I don't have the same experience, and I need to remember that I should at least be thankful that I don't deal with the misgendering, I guess. Though, I mean, I have been misgendered in the past. I have dealt with, like, violence and microaggression and all sorts of garbage like that, like, before transitioning, before, like, getting on hormones and stuff. So I do know what that's like. Oh, I feel so bad because I can't read this font. Hold on, can I look at their profile? Their profile name is Gay Vampire Jesus. This doesn't help me. No, there it is. Dulled Stilled Package. I think that's a Swedish word. I can't remember what it meant. That's her username in my server. But Gay Vampire Jesus is funny. Also, this person is plural like I am. They're part of a system. I talked about that in a previous video, the identity talk video before this one, so please at least understand what that means, but like before you get confused, I guess. I don't know, but this person says, dating's hard for me and the system as a whole in this life for, gosh, many reasons. We don't really date at all casually, and everyone I've dated up to this point, before I discovered I was a system, were all people I had a connection with for at least several months beforehand. I don't see that changing anytime soon with us, just that now we'd be dating preferably as a system and not just like me or anything. I think I had explained, well, I hope I explained that dissociative people who are a system usually refer to themselves with like as we or us. Specifically as someone who's trans, before being done with transition, I do have some worry about being seen as lesser, as well as potentially being treated immediately as a bottom, just because our body is this assigned gender at birth. I don't think I want to say they're assigned gender at birth, because this is almost an exclusive space. I'm not going... They do know... Like, everyone knows here that I do answer questions in my videos, but I didn't feel like putting that there. But being treated as a bottom... I don't want to laugh at that. It's just a very interestingly worded thing there. It's also just a very interesting issue. Yeah, I get... Okay, I get where you would say that. Alright. I understand that part. Yeah, again, with the assumptions of, like, you're this assigned gender at birth, so you must perform this way or be into this specific thing in this way. Like, I totally get that, definitely, and just, like, when it comes to intimacy, I get, like, the assumptions and the anxiety about, like, how people are viewing you. I'm going to use this as an excellent segue, to talk about what one of the next videos, is going to be. I don't know if that's, like, the next video. Let me check. Alright, so, okay, I was right. The next identity talk video is going to be how being plural affects my experiences with gender. We have one other person who answered the question here that I wanted to add on before I ended the video. As someone who's genderqueer, yes, very much. Dating apps will force you to pick a binary gender as your "who do we show you to" question. I've encountered my share of people who would yell the 4-letter T word when finding out I'm trans. People don't understand it either, and if they don't understand, they seem to just leave most of the time rather than learn. There's also the side of it that's my own mind. I'm telling these people that I'm a man by telling the app to show me to men. Is that fraud? Am I lying? That's something to worry about a lot. I never even specified who this was. This is Sai, in my Discord server, of course. What are they going to say when they find out I'm not packing specific equipment, so to say? That's how I'm wording that one. A surprising number of guys find that important, and honestly, I understand. Being trans and queer is stressful as it is, even though I live somewhere where it's pretty well accepted and I'm pretty well safe. And not everyone is willing to deal with any of that stress, so it's hard to get close to any of them. I worry they'll roll their eyes or push me away if I say anything. Sometimes I wonder if I should go back to calling myself a woman in the dating context, because I'm no surgery and no HRT. But it can be affirming too. Some of them are actually willing to learn about it or have learned about it. Having a partner who supports you breaking the binary the way you do is super, super validating. My last boyfriend was a wonderful example of this. He helped me along to realize I enjoy masculine traits. He offered to take me clothes shopping, although that never did come. A couple guys I've been talking to are supportive of me and ask me periodically if I've had a problem with anything they've said on the subject. Super cool, I like that. Dating as a queer trans person can be incredibly difficult and anxiety-inducing, but honestly, in the end, it can be super, super self-affirming, especially once you start passing. Yes, I like that. I like that a lot. It's a very good point, because that's kind of the point I was making, where it's like once I start passing, yeah, there's some, like, I guess there's some benefit to being able to pass. But that's also the thing, is that you're often more respected when you're passable, and that's not how it should be, but that's how it tends to be in dating spaces, on the dating scene, whatever. So, like, I get that. I know what that's like. I know what it's like on both ends of the spectrum here, I guess. Where, like, on the one side, misgendering and violent reactions almost to you admitting to being trans, not passing, so a lot of people give you a hard time for that. And then the other end, where it's like you pass really well, and people, I guess, they're more inclined to respectfully ask questions about you at best. But I mean, it still kind of sucks, because there's still people out there who cannot say that they have these experiences, these positive experiences. But I mean, it's different. That's why I ask these questions. I want to get, like, another perspective. I want to know, like, are people relating to the things that I'm saying, or do they have a different kind of experience that I might be able to learn from? So it's good to see that. It's good to be reminded that, like, I could be on that side where people are not the most respectful all the time. This person added, enjoy your wall of text. I could have said a lot more on the subject. But no, thank you for the wall of text, and thank you for responding. Thank you to everyone who does. Because, I mean, not only does it help, but it's just really nice to have that interaction. I don't like to just talk at people. I like there to be some kind of back and forth. So answering questions, or taking those, like, flag requests, or just, like, taking viewer suggestions is also a big thing that I like to do. Stuff like that. Like, I super appreciate it every time. And, like, I love that I get this feedback from the community, and I like that we can share these stories. That's, I guess, the most I guess it's the most important thing, is sharing these stories and connecting with people, finding similarities, and learning from each other. So I guess that's it for this identity talk video. And like I said before, this calendar doesn't help me, because this is last month's calendar, because I'm recording this ahead of time. So I don't know why I looked up there, but the last Monday of this month, since there's 5 Mondays, we get a bonus identity talk video, and I'm going to be talking about being plural, having a dissociative disorder, and how that affects the way that I view my gender and the way that I experience gender. And I mean, it goes into quite a bit of detail. So I've got that, and I'm taking a lot of brave steps towards talking about myself and talking out some of the issues I have with myself and with figuring out myself. But yeah, anyway, that's about it, and I am signing off for now. See you later.